I don't know, it was just a good talk, and I love how interested and how important concerts are to you,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and how you were talking about that, and, like, whenever I said I couldn't remember the last time I went to one, you were like, "What the hell? What's wrong with
Yeah.
you?"
Yeah.
But what
I
is it
mean
about concerts that you, like so much?
I think it, like first thing, it, like, transports me back to, like, when I was younger, right? Less responsibility, the biggest thing on your mind was, "Am I gonna wear my Chuck Taylors or am I gonna wear my flip-flops?" kinda thing, right? So, like, one, just, like, taking it back to, like, a different point in your life where maybe stuff wasn't as stressful. And then two, I think something about just, like, hearing live music, Matt, is just I don't know, it helps you just, like, block out all the craziness, at least in my mind. Like, I'm not thinking about, "I need to sign Julia, my daughter, up for summer camp," or, "My boss has a report due on Monday," and, my brain's just, like, constantly thinking about what I need to be doing next. And what I find when I'm, like, in live music, I'm just like, "Oh, man, this song is really, like, making me melancholy. Let me, like, live into that." Or, "Oh my god, this
Mm,
song played at this concert party, and we were, like, doing a keg stand," and, it just kind of helps transport you, and instead of being, like, stuck and worried about the future, you're just in the moment, and maybe that takes you back to a good time, or it takes you back to a silly time. It just helps kinda calm the madness, if that makes sense in my mind.
yeah. I've heard people compare it to, like, drugs.
That's
So,
fair.
it
Yeah.
it just, like, strips away anxiety, you're not thinking
Yeah.
about the future, you're just there, and you're just
Yeah.
feeling, like, what's
Yeah.
happening, and that's pretty cool. A few weeks after we got together, it was Mother's Day, I think,
Okay.
and so my wife went to the Ed Sheeran concert in Houston with her brother. Yeah, so she, like,
So
texted
wait,
me the
hold on, back up. Like, did you buy these tickets for your wife? Like, did you win husband of the year? Like, walk me through the process.
No, so I had a whole other stuff planned, and,
Okay.
like, we did our thing on, like, Mother's Day itself, but
Okay.
the day
Okay.
before, I can't remember what was going on. I took my daughter to soccer, and,
Mhm.
I think we were on the way back, and she called me, or we went to lunch or something, and she called me and was like, "Hey, can I go to the Ed Sheeran concert tonight?" "Sure,
Heck
go
yeah,
for it."
girl.
And so that just meant I needed to watch the kids for that night and do
Mhm.
bedtime by
Mhm.
myself. I'm like, "That's
Yeah.
not a big deal at
Which,
all."
yeah, you're easy
Um
breezy. Yeah, you got
but
that.
yeah, it was funny, the state that she got in when she got home, and, like, I don't know, it was cool.
So wait,
Um,
so she went with her brother, you said?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's
Yes,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, so they're, like, 3 years apart, super tight. They went to the same college together and,
Yeah.
like, hung out a lot, and they've got a
Nice.
good relationship. Yeah, they
Nice.
had fun.
So do you think that she was able to, for those 2 or 3 hours, not worry about laundry? She knows Matt has the kid, and just, like, able to not, "Okay, do I need chicken at the grocery store or do I need grape jelly?" I mean, it's just such a freeing moment, I think, and there's
Yeah.
very few things in life that I found that can help transport me to a, like, very calm and non-listing making mode, and concerts is, like, are definitely at the top of the list. I have a couple others that help me kind of decompress and wind down a little bit, but concerts are obviously, like, the most fun, right?
Yeah. Going to that concert definitely overshadowed all the plans that I had for her Mother's Day, and she may or may not have been hot over for it too.
I
It's
mean,
okay.
part of the present was you stepped up and took some additional
Yeah.
responsibilities, that y'all would have had to share instead of her just doing. So, I mean, that counts, that counts. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
trying to
no,
think
for
since
sure.
I've seen you. We went to we saw the Mars Volta, at 713, which is a super cool venue if you haven't been. They, redid the old post office downtown, and it's super cool because my dad worked at the post office as, like, an actual postal worker, so I always get, like, real sentimental when I'm there, and I'm like, "Hey," like, I wouldn't even be able to, like, afford, some of these pricey concert tickets if, like, he hadn't had this job where he was working, he would work Christmases and Thanksgivings to get extra overtime. And, I don't know that I would be here at this point if he hadn't really put in kind of the work up front to kind of set me up. So I would get a little sentimental, but the concert was awesome. I don't know if you've ever seen Mars Volta, but put it on your to-do list. Take your wife. It's another one
Okay.
where you're just, like, transported to, like, another universe. Their music is all over the place in, like, the best possible way.
Yeah, we're going to the Blink-182 concert later this year.
Okay, and
Yeah,
is that at the Woodland? Where are they playing?
I don't even know.
Okay, that is
That's
going
way
to
too
be
far in advance for me to, like,
awesome,
plan a
though.
location.
And I'm
What's that?
hoping, have they released new music or is it going to be like what you're wanting to hear?
They better play what I wanna
They
hear.
better. Or walk out, stage a walkout. 'Cause,
'Cause I
okay, like,
remember they were the 2nd parental advisory CD that I ever
who
bought. Remember
what was the
back when I
first
was a
one?
teenager. Nelly Country Grammar.
Oh my god, that was such a I could, like, you could put that album on right now. I could say every song verbatim. Like, don't text me right now because I may flub a little. But yeah, that was also a good one. But yeah, no, I've had a couple of friends go to Blink 182 and they said it was just, I mean, talk about transporting, man. I mean,
Yeah.
they're rocking a sick show, but it was funny because they walk in and my friend's like, "What are all these like old people doing here?" And I'm like, "Bro, they're all your age. Like we're old. We're old now. That's us. That's us." But that's
Yeah.
awesome. You're gonna have to keep me posted on the Blink 182 concert because I'm super jealous about that one.
Yeah, we're excited. You'll probably
Yeah,
go to it anyway, too.
yeah. I might throw it in. I might do like a game time decision and snag some tickets. I don't
Yeah.
think I think I saw Taylor Swift too, I think, since I saw you maybe. And
No,
of
we
course, I
talked
mean,
about that one.
we talked about
Yeah.
Taylor. Okay. Well, it's worth talking about again, Matt. I mean, it was a little intense, but it knocked my socks off. She's just I feel like she's so cliche, but she's such a good role model. I feel like for, my daughter and people of that age where I really think is putting her best foot forward and she talks about work ethic and not playing into like being nasty to people and just being a good person. And she does kind of I don't know, ideologies, puts that up front that like some of the other superstars aren't doing. I'm a Swiftie, Matt. Okay. I'm a Swiftie.
We all
You
are.
got it out of me.
We all are, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
Um,
Fair.
no, I saw a conversation between her and I think it was her dad, maybe her business manager or something,
Okay.
and they were arguing because she wanted to take a stance on it might have been some abortion stuff that was going on
Okay. Okay.
or something that was
Some hot
controversial.
ticket item. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she felt really strongly about it, and they were like, "Why would you risk alienating, half your fan base, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah," and she
Yeah.
she spoke with some heart about standing up for what's right,
Yeah,
and I thought that
which
was that was pretty
that's
cool.
awesome because I feel like a lot of people I mean, especially, like, in a work environment, right? Like, you're very cognizant of kind of, playing the middle field because you don't know who's, in the room, but I like it that she's just like, I'm gonna say what I want and stand up for what I believe in," and we need more people like that.
Yeah. Now, I will say that, when you have, half a cajillion dollars is still, like, enough, so she's got that freedom where
Yeah,
others may
like,
not.
she could literally not make another dollar today, Matt, and she's gonna be fine. I saw the number, and I can't even remember how much she made on this latest tour, and it's ridiculous.
I don't wanna know. That would
Yeah,
just
you
make me
don't.
sad.
It'll depress you. It'll depress you. It was well worth it. I mean, she played for, like, 4 or 5 I mean, it was nuts, like, what she did. It was so good. I can't lie. I can't lie.
That's awesome. Alright. I should probably introduce anybody that's listening to what's happening
Fair.
here. This
Fair.
is the Taylor Swift, episode of the Achieve
Um,
and Enjoy podcast.
I'm Taylor. No, just kidding.
No, this is episode, I think, 7, and the purpose of this podcast is to explore the relationship between work and happiness, achievement and joy, and success and contentment. This is gonna be obviously pretty candid and relaxed conversation, and we'll see where it goes. Today, we've got Jamie, which is awesome, which you've heard her love for Taylor Swift so far.
And Mars Volta, I need to get some street credit. That's the cool band. That's the cool
Yeah,
band for y'all
that
listening. Yeah,
that
it's I
is
have a full spectrum, Matt. Sure.
somebody might be okay with Mars Volta on Reddit,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
That's cool. Why don't you introduce yourself? So, who are you? What do you
Yeah.
do for work? Just to like frame it for people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'd love to hear your story. And so when I say story, I mean story, not resume or like work history or any shit like that. How did you get here? What's important to you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. Okay. So first of all, Jamie Villarreal. Who am I? I think obviously like all of us, I wear, many hats. My first hat, I would say is my family hat. I have a beautiful daughter who's 9 years old and is currently at summer camp and just got a new phone. So she's texting me right before this. She wants to come home. And I said, too bad, so sad, because mom was a celebrity and recording podcasts. So that's definitely one hat that I enjoy. I'm, married to a wonderful guy, Josh. We are hitting our 15-year wedding anniversary this year. So super excited about that. I'm actually going to do
Congrats.
a cool photo shoot where I'm going to wear my mom's wedding dress from the 70s and we're going to do like a retro wedding album. So, more to come on that. It's very important. And then, the work hat, that's obviously, takes up a big portion of my day to day. Luckily, it's something that I really, really enjoy. I work for a company called Marathon Oil. I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard of it. Believe it or not, I've only worked at Marathon. So I've interned for a gazillion companies, but Marathon has been tried and true also for the last 15 years. And
Mm.
Matt and I will probably get into that a little bit more. but I've run the gamut in terms of what topics I've pursued at Marathon. My most current is I am the production and reservoir manager for our EG asset. So that's Equatorial Guinea. It's located in Africa. I'm just dipping my toe in. I started late March, so still very much kind of getting up to speed on what that job's going to look like. But it's going to be something completely different than what I've done before. So I'm just excited. There's a lot I can bring to the table in terms of past experiences, but there's a lot I'm going to get to learn as well. A little bit more about me. I love concerts. Obviously, we talked about that. I'm a foodie. I'm down to kind of try anything new. I love to go to new restaurants. I live in Houston in the Heights. Represent the interloopers. Everybody out there with interloopers. I have not given up hope and moved out to the burbs, but never say never. So enjoy concerts, food, like to travel as we can. I'm hoping maybe to take some international trips. Obviously, I'll be traveling to Africa with my new role. So very much looking forward to that kind of new adventure. But yeah, I would say those are kind of my big things. And in terms of really like what drives me is what's going to make kind of me and my family happy. And I think as I've kind of gotten older, I changed the definition or even realized I needed to define that because you can say happiness and kind of take the surface level, but obviously that kind of depends on who they are, what you are, what kind of frame of life you're in. Yeah, I would say those are kind of my big ticket items, Matt. Did I miss anything? Did I
No,
disappoint? Did I live
no,
it up?
no,
Okay.
that's awesome.
Okay.
So I do wanna pick on one thing that you said. So you took the role that you're in now in, like, March,
Yeah.
and you said you're figuring out what that job is.
Yeah.
Can you say more about what that looks like for you? Like, how do you figure out what a job is?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's such an interesting point. Okay, so I'm gonna rewind and then I'll circle back to that.
Yep.
So I am a type A control freak, plans the 11th hour, not only in my work life, but my private life. Like when we go on a trip, I have my itinerary, wake up, breakfast, da 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 da. So I like structure. I like to know what to expect. I like to know that I can deliver on things. And so
That's
marathon
why
is
so
like,
sorry. So that's why I asked, because from the one time that we met, I pegged you as the type of person that would have had a 90-day plan
oh,
and,
yeah.
like, all this stuff, like, 90 days before you started the job.
Oh, well, yeah, 100%. And that was really, like, how my life in terms of career had been up until, like, let's say year 10.
Okay.
And in the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I've probably had 7 or 8 different jobs, all within Marathon, but ranging from, like, 6 months to 1 year to 18 months to 2 years. And if you had asked me a few years ago, I would have been like, "That's literally, like, my worst nightmare, Matt." Like, I don't like that. You're having to start over, you're having to meet new people, you're having to, like, reintroduce yourself, reprove yourself. But because I've kinda had to go through that and, like, knock on wood, have actually been relatively successful, it has now, like, kinda stripped the fear of the unknown
Mm.
to, like, almost be excited about it because 'cause I'm like, "Dude, I've done this, like, 3 or 4 times. I've changed the job. I'm going into something that I don't know. I've done it. So, like, let's just get excited that you're on a new journey." So I would say in terms of getting my feet wet into something brand new, there's a couple of things that I like to do. Obviously get to know the people that you're gonna be working with on a personal and professional level. Like, I wanna know, do you have kids? Do you like cats? Do you like concerts? I wanna know you as a person, what you're doing on the weekends, which I think is just as important as, like, what are you doing on the weekdays? Because you can't separate the 2. So get to know your team, and then get to know, like, what's important on that team. What has the team done well in the past? And obviously, that's not something that you necessarily need to spend a lot of time on. You just need to make sure that that boat kinda keeps moving. But what I like to do once I feel like I have a good understanding is, okay, well, what can I do to improve the team? What
Mm.
have been some items that maybe the team just hasn't been structured to work on, or maybe it's stuff that they've done, but they haven't been able to successfully do. And I see if that lines up with any of the strengths that I'm bringing from previous roles. So I would say get to know the people and get to know the processes. Those are kind of the two biggest things. And probably a third is don't be afraid to ask questions. And that is like, regardless of your job, regardless of your life, that has like been such a game changer for me because I know anytime I ask what I'm deeming as like a dumb question in a meeting, I know there's like 6 other people that are just too intimidated to ask. And like, that's not me. I'll raise my hand and be like, "Hey, I know you said 2 plus 2 is 4, but can we like walk through that one more time? Like, it seems like I thought it was 3, but like, can we walk through this?" And like, there may be a couple of people that are like, "Come on, girl." But I know that Joe in the back was like checking his email and he missed it and he wants to know too. So I think being somewhere new, I'm not intimidated at all to be like, yeah, they probably think I should know this, but I don't. And so I'm not going to fake it. I'm going to be like, hey, Haroon, walk me through this one more time because it's not making sense. I know we just went through it last week, but I have like a gap in my notes. Walk me through this. And I think kind of being able to like push my ego aside and yeah, I don't know all this stuff and no one's expecting me to know. Like there's a grace period as you get in and taking the pressure of like, you don't have to know everything day one.
Mhm,
And ask the questions. I think that's helped with the transition coupled with I've had to do a transition way more frequently than I would have liked, but that's built up kind of armor with my
mhm.
confidence. And like now I can do anything. Like if you called me tomorrow and say, Jamie, I need you to go fly a fighter plane overseas, I'd be like, cool. I don't know what I'm doing, but like I'm up for the challenge. And 5 or 6 years ago, I just would have been like, no, that's not interested to me. It's too scary.
That sounds like confidence to me. Like,
Yeah,
you're confident that you'll figure it out.
a
Like, you don't
hundred
know what it
percent.
is, but
Yeah.
you're confident in your ability to sort things out, figure out what you need to do,
Mm-hmm.
and get to
Mm-hmm.
it. But your point about asking questions is huge. I mean, yesterday saved me $1,000 on a
Oh,
contractor
what
because
happened?
just for like home stuff.
Okay.
Because we got the bill at the end of all this work, and I go through, all the line items. I'm like, hey, what's that right there? And because I just didn't know what it was. It
Yeah.
was they were doing some, and then he described it, and I was like, you guys didn't do that. But,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
found a few other little things, but yeah,
Yeah,
asking
and I feel
questions is
like
always good.
yeah, and, like, some people would be intimidated or, "Well, I should know all this, da, 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 da," and then you just kinda roll with it. I've never been, like, asked a question and, like, have my hand slapped, which I think some people are like, "I don't wanna look bad," or, "I don't wanna look stupid," and I'm like, I passed all that, like, I'm too old. That, like, ego part of me has left the building, and that has been, like, so freeing. My 9-year-old, I'm always trying to be like, teaching her what I'm learning now so
Mhm.
that she doesn't have to maybe make some of the same mistakes, but she's like, "I already know everything."
Yeah.
So, we're gonna work on that. We're gonna work on that. But yeah, I mean, when in doubt, ask the question. I feel like that's huge.
With kids, because I'm trying to do the same thing. We're trying to do the same thing with our kids, and we want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to question everything.
Yeah.
But when you're the parent and they question you, every now and then it's like, "Oh, okay, I didn't like that, but
Yeah.
that was a
It's
good
good.
thing that you
It's
did."
good though. It's good though. And I think it shows like, because sometimes she'll ask me and I'm like, "I have absolutely no idea." And I think it's showing like, yeah, just because you're an adult, you don't know everything. And I think there's that stigma, especially with kids that like, okay, just because you're an adult, they know everything. And no, Julia, like, I mean, I know a little bit more because I've been around here, but I don't know it all. And I'm not going to try to pretend like I do. Like, we'll figure it out together,
Yeah.
or we'll ask Alexa because, Alexa knows everything. But you know what I mean? I think, yeah, just ask questions. It's so simple, but I think it's just an ego thing. If you can put your ego aside and you're not scared to ask questions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And I always say that too when I'm training somebody new or I have somebody new on my team, I really try to show them that I'm doing that and encourage them because then it just makes the communication so much better. Because if they're stuck on something and they don't want to ask and then they spend 2 days working on something that they thought or, were too scared to get clarification on and it's wrong, it's like, hey, like nobody's winning from that. I would just try to be open and say, like, there are no dumb questions because I ask 100 dumb questions all the time. And, that's just part of life and just you got to own it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like there are dumb questions, but I don't care about, like, them. Like,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think a question is bad if it's not useful.
Yeah,
Like,
fair,
if it's
fair.
intended to, I don't know, show somebody up or be a gotcha or, like, things like that.
Yes.
Because
Yes, yes,
that's the
yes.
thing with asking questions, especially in, like, a work setting, is I feel like it depends on the culture a lot
Yeah, that's true.
and, like, the ego of the boss, right?
Mhm,
Because if you
mhm,
ask a question that is good and, half the room doesn't know the answer, and the person you ask it to is like, "Fuck you, that's stupid."
mhm. Yeah,
Like, there's probably not gonna be a lot of questions asked
yeah,
in that
yeah,
kinda team.
100%, and I think, obviously it's gonna vary from team to team, so I'm stepping into my new role, and it's a conventional team, versus, unconventional, and so it's these really senior technical, I mean, geniuses, for lack of a better word. They've been on the team for 10 plus years. So, I mean, I was very open and honest when I came in the team. I have some conventional experience, but like, I'm not walking in thinking I can do y'all's job, nor do I want to. I'm here to figure out how can we make things more efficient? How can we maybe get some stuff off your plate that maybe we don't need to? How can I make your job easier? Because I can't do your job. I'm not trying to do your job. And I think that also helps too with them knowing that, okay, so she's not coming in thinking she like has it all under the sun and is gonna try to step on me. I'm like, No, y'all are here for a reason. You're great at what you're doing. I'm just here to help y'all in whatever kind of appropriate capacity that means. Because there's always going to be someone smarter in the room, and like own it. That's okay. Everyone is bringing different strengths and different topics to the room, and own that and find your strength and advertise that strength. And we're all on the same team. And if you can own that and recognize it, and it's not in a competitive environment, then I think the questions are going to come, and you're just going to get a better work product because those egos have then been put aside because you're not in an arm wrestling competition from who's the best, because everybody's bringing something different, and that's how it should be.
I think like what you're talking about sounds to me like a really strong balance of what we talked about earlier, like confidence and
Yeah,
humility. So
yeah,
being both confident and humble kind of
yeah.
in the right way at the same time. Cause I feel like that's something that especially early career managers, like when you get your
Mhm.
first manager job, you're like, I need to look confident.
Yeah.
And so you're afraid to like not know
Mhm.
stuff and to ask
Yeah.
questions and a lot of those things. And did you go through anything like that? And if so, like how
I
did you
mean,
find this balance of confidence and humility?
yeah, I mean, I would say so my first manager role, let's just take a number, but let's say it was like 5 or 6 years ago, and it was very intimidating on multiple levels. I had been like a reservoir engineer for 10 years, and they had a manager role open in our asset planning. And for people that don't know what that is, you're basically the human calculator, if you will. You're doing cash flow projections, you're doing production projections, operating expense projections. It's a very important role because that ultimately gets rolled up, and you're looking at the health of the enterprise. And so I was asked to do not only like a first management role where I'd never managed anything, but it was also like managing something like I had never done before. So I think just because I'm a realist, I was like, I can't come in and act like I know everything just because it was never going to be that right approach. So I remember I had a one on one with everybody and I said, here are the strengths that I'm going to be bringing to the team. Here are the stuff that I'm going to need your help with. I hear, Matt, you're really good at XYZ. You're going to be my guy on that. I'm going to be going to you for this. And, if that's not true, let me know. But I'm going to be relying on you to help support me with this. So that first gig that I did, and I try to do it for every role, but I kind of like stalked everybody, right? Okay, Matt's good at this. Jenny's good at this. Kara's good at this. And I really kind of had a one on one with them, be like, hey, I'm going to be open and honest with you, Matt. I'm not good at project A, but project A is really important. So, like, you're going to be my guy, and I want to help you with whatever I can. So, help me help you. Like, what can I do to make sure project A gets good? But I think it never even crossed my mind to come in, like, all hot and heavy because I would have fallen, like, flat on my face. I was just too realistic. I wasn't, sure how to be the best manager. I wasn't really sure what the job even was. I mean, I actually had to interview for 2 replacements my first weekend. They needed 2 new team members that were gonna report to me. Full disclosure, I had 2 really incredible candidates. Their kind of execution worth was, like, top notch, and one of them just seemed maybe a little bit kinder, more humble, a little bit nicer of a person, and I was like, I'm gonna go with you. This is gonna build a better team environment." And he's gone on to flourish, and I'm so proud of him, but he kinda had come from an IT background. It was
Mm,
gonna be a lot of learning for him, and he's just crushed it. I think just kind of being humble and nice, Matt, is, like, for whatever reason, frowned upon because, you need to have the big chest and you need to be like, I'm the best of the best. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'd rather just like be nice, all work together. I think that's going to get a better product. And like for me, that's work. Just being like, I'm good at this. You're good at this. Sally's good at this. Let's all do it together instead of just being like, I'm going to do it all, guys, because I got it. I'm just like, that's not going to work for anybody. But yeah, I think just being as humble as you can and owning at the same time what you're good at. Like, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'm really good at this. And this is
mhm,
where I can excel. But in the same breath, be like, hey, I have no idea, what I'm doing with XYZ. I'm going to need some help on that. So I think
yeah.
kind of getting to know your team's strengths and going in and saying, hey, I'm going to lean on you for this. And you're going to be my go to, man or woman for this kind of day one, really set the tone to like, I'm valuing what they're good at. I'm not trying to change it. I'm just trying to say, hey, what can I do to make things easier for y'all? Or what are some inefficiencies that I can look at to see, can we stop doing some of these reports? Or can we make this a spot for our tool so it can get done quicker? So I think just getting to know the team and the dynamic is the best kind of day one thing you can do because that sets you up for success. You have the skeleton of the team, and then you can kind of just take it from there.
Let's go back. I wanna hear more like your pre-marathon, pre-family story. Like, how did you get to that point? Where'd you grow up? Like, where'd you go to
Yeah,
school? That
yeah.
kinda stuff.
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, I just graduated from college, so kidding. So I grew up in Cypress, Texas, just, Northwest Houston. Kind of humble upbringing. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked for the post office, I think I had just mentioned. And so really didn't know what I wanted to do kind of when I grew up. I honestly know that's not true. So my mom worked in a school system and I was like, I have no interest in that. Those teachers work so hard and have to deal with some real craziness. So I was able to like at least scratch that one off the list. So I went to Cypher High School, Bobcat Fight Never Dies, the Bobcats. Was on a drill team, super social, really kind of excelled in school without having to try much. Fast forward, got into UT engineering. And that was kind of driven by talking to my best friend's dad. He had gone to UT and I really had kind of heard a little bit about what he had done for work and it seemed interesting when I was trying to pick what major I wanted to do. Anyways, long story short, went chemical engineering and I went from like high school where like I really didn't have to try, crushed it to like you're at UT and it's like you're in a sea of just like really, really, really smart people. I mean, talk
Mm.
about an ego check. Like I used to just be like, oh, I'm gonna study for like 10 minutes and get an A on my calculus to being like, I was like in the library, like all college math. People think of like fond memories in college. I like shudder when I see like an organic chemistry like textbook. So college was like an authentic struggle for me. I think that's probably where some like my humbleness comes from. It's like
Mm.
because I went from being top 10 or 11% to like struggling to get like, B's and hopefully like an A here and there. So pursued the chemical engineering route. I actually interned for like a lot of different companies and didn't really kind of find the one that stuck. I worked for TCEQ, Texas Commission of Environmental Quality. Not to be a hater, it was a little bland for me. I just couldn't see myself doing that, all day, every day. I worked for a company called Lubrizol, which is out in Deer Park, where I was in like FRCs, hard hot, getting my hands dirty every day. And again, I was like, well, I do like my nails and my hair and my manicure, so I don't know if that's gonna be for me. And then one of my besties had interned at Marathon, and I fell in love with the oil and gas side for the reason that it's a little bit creative in the sense of chemical engineering. When I studied it was very like black and white. It's like 1 plus 1 is 2, and there's no debating that. Whereas when you're in the petroleum world, there is a little bit of like artistic value. I mean, there is some, ranges that you can put into inputs that are ultimately going to affect the output. And I like the idea of like being creative and not always having like a right or wrong path. And so I interned for Marathon and then I hired on with them right out of school. I remember all my friends are running around the campus sweating in their black suits, trying to hustle, get to the next meeting. And I'm just like sitting at the pool, drinking a Diet Coke. And then lo and behold, showed up in Marathon in 2008. And it has been an incredible journey. I mean, we can speak on that later, but I just hit my 15-year anniversary, work anniversary, wedding anniversary, all those. And it's crazy how time has flown. And I'm just really proud of the career that I've had kind of up until then.
The '08 must have been a big year for you.
Big year. I just was like, let's just get it all done. Start a job, get married, all that good stuff. But I was a planner. I kind of did it all on purpose, right? You know how that
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you said some very interesting stuff. So,
Okay, what you got? I'm ready for you.
the first one, you like the idea of oil and gas because of the aspect of creativity,
Hmm.
and there's not being a right or wrong answer.
Hmm.
Um, like, playing that off of, you being a planner, type A, like,
Hmm.
how does that ambiguity and uncertainty, like, what about that gives you that kinda energy?
I think it's just like it allows me to be like risky without like
Mm,
actually like taking risks, right? I mean, it's a
okay.
controlled environment. The risks aren't going to have like huge implications if your porosity is 10% or 11%. I just like it didn't have to be 10% and it didn't have to be
Mhm.
11%. And the fact that, you turn some knobs and oh my gosh, there's, really a huge impact. Does that make sense? And you go back and you turn it down a little bit. Okay, this makes more sense. I like the idea of you could get to the answer multiple ways. And so it kind of made it like a little bit more almost like a detective, right? You don't have all the answers in front of you. And I think in contrast, chemical engineering, like all I had was like flashcards, right? It's like this molecule plus this molecule equals this compound. It was a lot of memorization for me and it was fun. It was challenging. I wouldn't change anything about it. It really helped me become like a really solid problem solver. But I was looking for something like a little bit more romantic. Yeah, I mean, there's a formula you need to follow, but there's some gray to it and there's some flexibility. But it wasn't anything crazy. Like I still felt like it was like within a pseudo controlled environment. but it
Yeah.
allowed me to be like a little kooky, a little crazy without kind of getting like too over the top.
Yeah, and I would imagine that, like you said, high school was super easy.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you're smart, and so having something that's too prescriptive without like judgment calls in it
Yeah. Yeah.
would probably feel pretty boring. I
Yeah.
know I'm definitely that way. Like if it's too clear and it's just like executing a thing that's already predetermined and there's no
Mhm.
decisions along the way, like
Mhm.
I really get bored. I
Yeah,
struggle with that.
it's not I mean, it's not as fun. It's already kind of planned out for you to, like, a certain extent, and I mean, I still like the project to have, like, a start, middle, and finish where you know where you're headed, like, don't get me wrong, I like some
Yeah.
structure, but I wanna be able to kinda weave in and out as much as I want to.
Yeah. That's cool. What did you say your dad did for work?
Post office. So,
Okay.
he didn't ever actually, like, deliver mail, get bit by the dog, wear short shorts and, carry the mail bag. I think he honestly was, like, working with his hands, kind of organizing and, kinda moving stuff from bin to bin because he started college, but was paying for it by himself and just felt like that wasn't something that he was gonna be able to continue to do, so dropped out of college, went straight to the post office, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but I think he worked there for 40 years and then, retired at a relatively young age. I mean, he was in his like late 50s, I want to say early 60s, and now is, living a really nice government kind of pension and
Mhm.
doing it right. I mean, definitely like worked hard. I mean, I remember like Christmases and Thanksgivings, you would get like double overtime or, something like that.
Mhm.
And he would totally take it. And I didn't even realize until like I was a little older, like that wasn't necessarily like the norm. I'm like, oh wait, like your dad's like always there for, Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. But looking back on it, like, I know he much would have rather have been with us, spending time with the family, but we you needed the additional income, and so we would just because it's the 25th, that doesn't have to be Christmas, so we could do Christmas, the day before or the day after, so, like, I wasn't, like, sitting home alone on Christmas, like, crying, like, it was a
Right.
lovely childhood. But I think from an early age, I saw just good work ethic, like, my dad was
Yeah.
there to, like, get stuff done, and he actually loved it, he always had such a good time, he would tell me about his friends, and I think they always had, like, music playing, and he loved 97.9 The Box, which is, like, a radio station that's, like, still around, and as hard as he worked, he still found, like, fun in it, and I think that's always kind of been the bar that I've set kinda going
Mhm.
forward, like, I know I'm gonna work hard, like, that's life, but where can I find, like, some fun in some stuff? I was off on vacation, and one of my direct reports stepped in and really did, like a solid for me, so I got him this really fun board game that his daughter is close to my daughter's age, and got that to him as, like, a little thank you, and, like, putting, like, a little bit of fun in work when you can, right? I think that just makes it so much more fun. So, yeah, I think my dad really just set that example of work hard, but, like, find the good in it. Like, yeah, I'm working, more hours than maybe, like, the normal Joe is, but I'm finding fun and joy, like, where I can. So, because I feel like a lot of people haven't been able to, like, seek out that joy, and he kinda showed me the path that it's important, and it helps mental health and physical health if you can, come home and have a funny story to tell from work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure, and I think there is a pretty antiquated mindset a lot of people have that work is serious and, it's business time and
Mhm.
all that stuff,
Mhm.
and I'm sure I mean, obviously everybody's different, but, like, I work better when we're having fun.
Yeah.
Like, I wanna make some stupid jokes and,
Yeah.
like, if somebody screws up their PowerPoint or something, I want us all to laugh at
Yeah.
them together,
Yeah.
and it'd
Yeah.
be cool, and, like, we
Yeah.
just move on, and,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
'cause I think most of the soul-sucking nature of work comes when people
Mhm.
just aren't acting human. They,
Yeah.
like, put on this robot
Yeah.
businessman face or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that they think
Yeah.
they're supposed to have, and they get political, and they're not open, and they don't ask those questions, like,
Yeah.
all that kinda stuff
Yeah.
is gnarly.
And like, that's not fun for them, and it's certainly not fun to kinda be around, so I just think that they're missing out, those people that can't cut a rug or make a joke here and there because it just lightens the environment and encourages, I think, just to kind of be more yourself and, like you said, you're more comfortable to ask kind of the silly questions, and then I have fun, like, I come home at least once a week and be like, "You will never guess the story that Gerard told me." I mean, and it's fun, I mean, I love that part about my job.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what I thought was interesting also is teacher and post office, those are both very, like, service-oriented jobs and,
Mhm.
like, very I don't wanna say, like, self-sacrificial, but to an extent,
Yeah.
especially being a teacher, especially the way schools are funded. But I wonder if that's where you drew some of your humility from also, because if high school's easy, you have fun, you go do all this stuff, it's really easy for you to be overconfident and end up cocky and things
Mhm.
like that. But it sounds like your parents might have helped you out there.
Man, is this like Matt the therapy session? I had no
I
idea
don't
that
know.
we were gonna I'm impressed. You may have a new calling, Matt. You may have a new calling. No, I think that's totally right. I mean, I never really kind of thought of it on that path. But yeah, I mean, I think just the skills and the personality type you have to do to kind of pursue those jobs that you mentioned, that kind of comes with the territory. I never kind of, put those dots together. I think kind of seeing those examples that they had set for me allowed me to know that like it's okay not to be the best at everything. Like find what you're good at and rock that out and then ask for help on the other things. And then that's how you get a good core group around you.
Yeah. And no, I'm not trying to do therapy. I'm just like, I don't
I
know. I
like
just
it.
find this
I
stuff
like it.
like
Just send
fascinating.
me the bill. Send me the bill later, Matt. Yeah.
But like, that's what's cool about hearing the full story and drawing the connections. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it seemed like you were kind of like naturally hardworking and also humble and like pretty practical about things. Like,
Mhm.
how does that happen? Like, where does that come from?
That's true.
Um,
Yeah.
so you talked about your dad with missing out on some holidays, and it doesn't sound like that was the Hallmark movie that some people might imagine.
Yeah.
Being all tragic. But like, let's talk about like boundaries around work because you're obviously somebody that's done very well in your career. Like you've made it to positions where most people that I've met that are in positions at your level are workaholics
Sure.
and
That's
like
fair.
it consumes their life.
Yeah.
So how do you think about boundaries? How do you think about effort versus like, yeah,
Yeah.
how do you think
Yeah.
about
No,
all that?
I get what you're saying. And I think as you get more comfortable with yourself, I think that that process also gets better. So that's kind of like disclaimer. So the stuff I'm saying right now has not always been, how I have been. But I would think some of the tips and tricks that I have picked up on kind of being at the level that I'm at, there's a couple things that I think kind of help. The first being, let's say you have 10 items on your to-do list for one day. You're not going to get all 10 done. That's probably just not going to happen. So it's very imperative that you're clear on what your boss values of importance, right? Because five of those may be like nice to have. Three of those are like a non-negotiable if you don't get those done. And two, maybe like he forgot he even asked you about them because they've been there for last month. So something that I always do is I have a 7:30 check-in with my boss every Monday and I go over what I'm going to be focusing on, what my team's going to be focusing on. And I openly acknowledge we're not doing this right now, but we are doing this. And I think it's imperative to be focusing on what's important. And I know like that sounds weird, but not all of it's important, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? Just because someone's asked you to do something, you need to be very clear on when do you need it and kind of what level do you need it, right? Do you need 80/20? Is it going to a set of board of director slides? So like everything has to be pristine. So being just very clear with the priority of a project, what is the actual ask, and when is kind of the drop dead deadline, I think has really, really helped me kind of set up the week. So, I meet with my boss at 7:30. And then from that, I have my check-ins with my direct reports after that. So, kind of the first half of the day is just setting up the week for success, right? Okay, are you going to be on vacation? Okay, well, so we need to make sure that we get this done. So that means that maybe this is going to fall by the wayside, but I know that's okay because I talked to my boss and he was good if that got pushed to the end of June. So it's probably like a little bit of work up front, Matt, but it has really helped in getting to leave on time because I know that my boss wanted these 3 things done today, and I got 3 done. Yeah, there's 2 more that I need to get done this week, but I still have 3 more days to get it done. So I think understanding what the management expectations are for the project, making sure, "Hey, do you still need this? We talked about this 2 weeks ago. I hadn't really heard anything." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, no, no. You can scratch it off the list." Jerry had some report from last year and it's kind of close enough. So kind of checking in before you start something from scratch.
Do you still need this is one of the
Mhm.
biggest time saving questions that
Yeah.
especially in big companies that people should
Yeah.
ask like all the time.
Yeah. And it's easy. Like it's a very easy, like yes or no, or suggest multiple paths. So like we need product A. And I could be like, hey, well, we have A that was done 6 months ago and is like 80% of the answer, or we can give you a new A, but it's going to take X number of man hours and this is going to get delayed. And I don't have the answer, but I'm going to give that to my boss. And based on what she's going to be using it for, she can help guide me. And so I think it's just really getting clear expectations on, the priority of the project, definitions around a project and absolute deadlines. Part of that is saying no. And,
Yeah.
hey, can I get this? And it made me not be like a flat out no, because I hate it when people are like, just say no. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. It's just not right now. Like, yeah, Matt, I can get you that report, but it's gonna be Wednesday after lunch because I have a doctor's appointment in the morning. And they're like, oh, okay, like that's fine. Or they're gonna be like, no, absolutely. And I'll be like, okay, well, let me call Sharon and see if she can get it for you. So I think it's spending a little bit of time up front at the beginning of the week and really kind of like scheduling it out, prioritizing. I have a little calendar that I send out to my team every Monday with like the 2-week forecast. And I'm like, hey guys, let me know if the stuff's moving around because it's kind of a knock-on effect. I think taking that kind of time on Monday to like reflect and get organized help when you're in the office or, even when you're working from home, spending time on what matters. So then that
Mhm.
helps by default, work-life balance because at the end of the day, I didn't get maybe number 8 and 9 done, but I talked to my boss on Monday and that wasn't a burning passion of hers. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna do that next week. So if it's 4 o'clock and my daughter has gymnastics, I'm gonna go and I'm not gonna feel bad because I got her the 3 that she needed to kind of continue on.
I'm hearing I think a lot of people talk about, like, prioritization and confirming with your boss, like, what order you need to do things. But I think what you're talking about is a little different in that you've gone so far as to define what is enough,
Yeah.
right? So you know what's critical, you know what's nice to have, like, that kinda
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
And because I think that's the piece that people miss,
Yeah.
is that they don't know when to stop. Like, they have
Yeah.
the list and they have it prioritized, but once you
Mhm.
finish 3, then they just assume that number 4 is just as important as the first 3 were at the time, and so it just
Go on to
never
the next
stops.
one. Yeah.
And there's an acceptance of there's always gonna be more stuff to do
Oh,
than
yeah.
there is time to
Yeah.
do it, and
Yeah.
I think people fight that a bit.
Uh-huh. And I really saw those traits in me or those skills in me happen when I was in the asset planning because you would literally have okay, so like to build a forecast in Intersight, I can even count 10,000 inputs you need. I'm probably being dramatic, but there's an insane amount of inputs that ultimately need to get populated and then run. And then you need to do some sort of analysis to see if, the results make sense. And sometimes you'd have to like push back with people and they're like, hey, we want to change something. And I would have to make the judgment call and say, like, this isn't going to be critical to like the end result. So
Mhm.
we're not going to make that change. And I think kind of pushing back and understanding and, making that decision call that like maybe 80% is close enough, you'll still get the answer. It just isn't to the nth degree, but the team is still going to be able to make an educated decision. And so, yeah, when I came into that planning role, I was like overwhelmed to be like, we have to change like 1,000 different inputs and like understand all of this stuff. And you have to take a step back. After a while, you figure out, okay, well, only really like these 20 make a huge difference, right? So I'm not even going to take changes for these other inputs but twice a year instead of 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So I think being in that role where there's like 100 different moving parts, and I definitely worked way too much kind of my first couple of cycles. I like sat down with myself and I was like, okay, something's not working. We're not doing this to the best of our abilities. And I kind of sat with my team and we worked kind of through a process to say, we're not going to make these changes every time. And if someone comes to you with a change and it's, a certain percentage, we're not going to do that. And at the end of the day, it's not hurting the work product. It's giving you more time to finish it, analyze the results and see if it makes sense versus like
Yeah.
doing all the changes and then like 10 minutes before the presentation you're sending it and you're like, well, I hope this is right. That kind of forced some of the skills I have now after being over a team that is having to make a lot of dynamic changes and in a economics model like that.
You mentioned your daughter's gymnastics. Are there
Mhm.
other boundaries that you've put up that are non-negotiable?
With my new role, I sent a note out to everyone and said, hey, I get to work early. I get there at 6:30, and so I don't see Julia before she wakes up. So because of that, like, I wanna leave at, like, 4 or 4:30 and do that 9 times out of 10. Now, that doesn't always mean that, like, a couple times a week, I'm not logging on and, like, checking something. That doesn't mean I'm gone. I just wanted to be very clear that when it's, like, 4 or 4:30 and there's not a fire, I'm not gonna sit there just to, like, show that, like, I'm there. Because
Yeah.
I think COVID helped with that. I think knowing and proving to, like, the greater good that you don't have to be in your office chair to be getting stuff done, I think that's more palatable. So I'm not this, amazing person, but, I said it, "No, these are my hours. I work from home on these days. Here's my cell phone number." But, like, when it's 4 or 4:30, like, I'm out. But I'm, responsive. Like, if it's something that's urgent, don't hesitate to call me. And I think kind of being transparent with that and kind of stating it up front instead of maybe for the first, couple months staying late just to like show off, then you have to
Mhm.
like tear off the band-aid later. And then it just makes it kind of awkward. So I think just kind of being upfront, like, this is what's going to come with me and I'm going to get a lot done in the time I'm there. And if there are the times I need to log on after I've left, that's not a problem. But, when it hits 4:30, I'm in my car listening to my podcast because Jules has soccer or gymnastics or something like that, and that time's not gonna always be there when I'm able to kinda drive her and be present for her practices. And
Mm.
believe it or not, I mean, I've been surprised, and maybe you just have to have a good track record possibly for that to be okay, but I've never had any pushback or, like, we expect you to be there or, you're not setting a good example or anything. Like Marathon has been really understanding. Like, yeah, like we get
Mhm.
that. And, you're getting your work done. Like, that's not a problem. I mean, it's still like intimidating kind of every time I send out like the first email where I'm like, hey, I'm a 4 o'clock girl. Like, love me or hate me. And I'm the same way with like my team. Like, get your work done. And if you need to leave at 2 o'clock because you have a dentist appointment, like that's fine. Like I'm not like
Yeah.
sweating that. But I do think probably COVID had a lot to kind of help with that because we've now proven that we can work anywhere. Like when Julie's at the dentist, I can easily pop up my laptop and look at a report if I have to. Like the earth's
Yeah.
not gonna stop spinning.
Well, COVID screwed things up and for a lot of especially middle managers
Okay.
because it
Okay.
showed how poorly of a job they do of actually understanding the work product and the output of their teams. And so,
Gotcha.
like, they really relied on physical presence and hours in the office to hope that things were getting done. Because I know quite a few people, and that's why people ended up spending all their time on Teams in
Okay.
meetings to
Yeah.
confirm that people were working and like all the software to like monitor
Oh,
people,
yeah.
and that stuff gets gnarly.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's happening already, but the future of work is about output and
Yeah.
not time spent. Some jobs you can't do that. One thing that we talked about was like working smarter and not harder. And obviously
Hmm.
prioritization is a huge part of
Hmm.
that. Leveraging your team, knowing what you're good at versus what other
Hmm.
people are good at and like
Hmm.
organizing that properly is a big part of it. What else?
Like my trusty calendar, right? So like I look at it every Monday. Okay, let's say something's due at the end of July, and I know there's going to be like 10 different pieces that like need to happen before then and now. I backtrack, schedule when all these pieces need to get done, who's in charge of them. Back from my planning days, I leave a little wiggle room because like something like always goes awry on kind of the 10 things leading up to that. And then I just kind of check in and it's not like a micromanaging thing. It's just like, hey Matt, I see that you have XYZ due on Wednesday. Are we still on track with that? Or is there something like I can do to help make sure that that happens? And I think being able to like step back and say, yeah, okay, it's not due till July or, August, you can easily just like kind of hope all the puzzle pieces are going. But, if you have a larger team and they're remote, I think it's good to have not crazy micromanage deadlines, but milestones as
Mhm.
appropriate to like lead up to the project so that you can early on see if like something's starting to drift, right? Like, okay, well, if milestone one drifts, well, just because I'm crazy, I already have a bit of slack in, so we're okay. But let's say it's 2 weeks out for the presentation and we're really off base. I may call the admin and say, hey, like, I don't know if this presentation is going to be ready. Is there any flexibility to push it a week? And I'm not calling her like the night before. So, I mean, it's not anything fancy, but it's really just taking a step back and digesting a project into multiple pieces
Mhm.
and being clear that Matt's doing this. I'd like it due on Wednesday. And I'm not constantly checking in, but when it's like, a day or two before, hey, Matt, how's it going? Is there anything I can do to help you make sure that it gets done? That's kind of really helped me be successful because then you can like visually see it. You can pull up in the Excel calendar and say, okay, I have 2 weeks, and somebody on my team be like, well, that's not going to work because I'm out on vacation that week. Okay, well, like that's why we're talking about it now. So we can shift everything back to make sure that Dan can go to Florida. And then I think it also helps foster and them know that like I'm respecting like their vacation time. I don't want them working on vacation.
Yeah.
So when we were scheduling out the business plan, Dan, I think he's going to somewhere cool on the beach. We shifted everything back 2 weeks so that we could make sure that he was done. But I think if I had waited and like kind of let the scope creep or excuse me, like the project deadlines creep, we would have been in a pickle because we didn't think ahead enough time that Dan was going to be out for those 2 weeks. We would have counted those as 2 weeks of Dan working. So I think kind of trying to take a step back on a project and break it into smaller pieces and get like a few milestones has also been really helpful in everybody's clear on what they need to do. I don't need to micromanage you. And then that way, if something slipped, we can instantly see the impact. Okay, well,
Yeah.
no, Jamie had a couple extra days in there. We're fine. Or like, oh shit, no, like we gotta call somebody and maybe get something moved.
Yeah.
But I also think that that allows my team to know that like I value their time away from the office. I want them to be gone, and I don't want to call them. Like I want them to enjoy it
Yeah.
because like I want to do the same. So I think that part has been helpful too, just like the overarching kind of project management piece.
Dan's got to go to Florida.
Dan's gotta go to Florida, man. I want him to go to Florida. I want him to get a suntan. I want him to drink some pina coladas. I don't want him to think about anything work related. So he comes back refreshed and kind of wants to hit the ground running when he's back.
That's such a good example of how doing a good job at work can allow you to just be happy,
Right.
to experience a vacation without that stress, without all of that other stuff. It's all linked. And I think even more meta than the stuff that we've been talking about, there's just a clarity of thought that goes into prioritizing and defining what things are, project management. So cause and effect and deadlines and how do these pieces interact and sorting all that stuff out. And I think that clarity of thought is something that you notice when it's not there,
Yeah.
especially like you talk to a leader of a team or a company or something and they're just all over the place.
Mhm.
And I think we all go through times like
Oh,
that where
yeah.
we don't have our shit together and that's the
Yeah.
way it goes. What do you think drives that ability for you? And like, how do you think that skill is built or like
Yeah.
cultivate it to where you can think clearly, understand what's going on and make good decisions?
I mean, I think it goes probably all the way back to college where you just had to learn how to solve a problem,
Mhm.
elementary style. Like, what are the approaches to solving problems? Being chemical engineering, you're solving like, really complex organic chemistry stuff. So I think that helped make me realize, okay, I'm good at problem solving. And then I think it is like a skill that I probably didn't even know I was lacking until I got into this kind of planning world where I went through kind of a first budget cycle. So it's like 3 months, you're working on a lot of stuff. At the end of the 3 months, this is due. And I just kind of was like, oh, yeah, like this is probably all going to come together. And like I ended up missing like one of Julia's like Disney on Ice. And I was up at like 3 o'clock in the morning trying to balance reserves. And I was like, I knew 6 months ago that this was going to be due. This deadline is not a surprise to anybody. And I think that was just like a really big wake up call that you know what you need to get done and you know at the end when it needs to happen. So why
Mhm.
not break it into kind of like smaller projects? So I would think it almost came out of like a need to survive because those first couple months, there's burnout. I was like, I don't think I can do this for much
Mhm.
longer. But then after I implemented kind of the more project managing, breaking into bite sizes, giving wiggle room when, like a certain input's due, and there's usually like iterations with that team because there's errors or there's changes, allowing for a little bit more breathing room. It went from a job that I was like, ugh, to like, oh my God, this is like one of the most amazing jobs in the world because I had time to sit back and really think. And then I could guide management saying, hey, we were able to run some sensitivities. And if you can do this with your OpEx, like look at your cash flow. And we had even enough time to then optimize. But yeah, I mean, I think it just came out of like survival because I was like,
Mm.
after a couple of these and I was like 3 o'clock in the morning and I was trying to balance gas reserves, I like literally was like, how is this my life? Like, I remember I was, like, in my pajamas for, like, 3 days eating old hot dogs. And I was like, "This is no one should live like this." And I was like, "Enough's enough." So, I mean, I definitely didn't get it right on the first time, but kind of after, each cycle, I would always sit down with my immediate team and say what worked, what didn't. I would sit down with the people that gave me inputs and say what worked and what didn't, and then every cycle got better to the point where I was in planning working a 40-hour week, which was, like, unheard of, like, that just didn't usually happen. But it almost took, like, being in the trenches of, like, "This kinda sucks,"
Yeah.
to realize something needed to change.
But like all that pain is self-inflicted by the company, right?
Yeah.
And reserves is the perfect example. Like the deadline's the same.
Yeah, you know it for
And
years. You
and
know it
it's
for
just like when
years.
I do my taxes. Like if
Mhm.
I'm stressed out the week before my taxes are due, that's my fault. Like
100%.
like
100%.
the government didn't move the deadline up or
Nope.
anything.
No,
And
same time every year. I totally agree, and it's just knowing that you need to, without going, like, overboard, like, iron out the details, give some flexibility, and it should come together a lot more smooth when you're, eating little bites and like trying to, swallow the whole steak at once the day before you got to do it. And I've taken that mindset with me to all of my management roles, and it's really helped. I mean, I'm kind of nicknamed like the calendar girl, but I really think it's just because like people are jealous because I'm organized and whatnot. But yeah, I don't go anywhere without my calendar, and it just makes life easier. Like you need to adjust, a piece of it, and you can kind of see the long term effects, and hopefully it's okay. And if not, you can make a judgment call earlier rather than kind of scrambling last minute and not delivering the best result you can.
What about, because I think there's the skill of doing that planning and the project management and problem solving, but then there's also, like, the energy that you have to do it every day and
Hmm.
to be thinking clearly about the whole concept and everything, and I know that you hate journaling and everybody that does it, but
Don't tell all my secrets, Matt.
no, but what habits, like, do you have personally that you think help you have energy and have the mental clarity for, like, focus and, like,
No,
that
that's
clarity of thought?
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. I've really tried to I'm guilty of if I allowed my mind to do what it wanted, I would think about work like all the time, right? That's not a pleasant thought. Like no one should kind of live that way. So what I've worked to try to find are things that not distract me, but I enjoy enough that it like allows me to focus on other things. It's kind of like the concert. Another thing that I, like to do that's not cool or anything, but like reading, and I'm not reading anything smart, guys. I'm not gonna say like Atomic Habits or like whatever. I'm reading murder mysteries where people get killed and there's blood. But it allows me to like be somewhere different and I'm, in the story and that very much rejuvenates me. Like I measure my vacations on like how many books like did I get to read. If it's like
Yeah.
3, it was an amazing vacation. If it was 1, well, maybe we were like sightseeing, so that's okay. But I think reading is something that helps recharge me because it forces my brain to be like, you can only think about the page on this book. So it's
Mhm.
allowing my like work side to like take a little nap. And then I think, exercise, I probably don't do it as much as I should, but I jazzercise, which is not just for 60-year-old ladies. So all you haters out there, I see you laughing. It's cool now. Okay.
It's
Google it.
hilarious. It
Google
may
it.
be cool, but it's also hilarious.
Uh-huh. It is. It is. I know. I know. It's totally, yeah, I'm by far probably one of the youngest there, but it's awesome. So I think getting out there, you're out there, you're doing your, leg ups and chin ups and like just getting jiggy with it. And you're not thinking about anything else. Really, it's just anything that can kind of take my brain and shift it to full focus on something that's uplifting or rejuvenating or exciting. I think that's kind of where I get my joy from. And then like last night, for instance, my daughter and I just did Lego has these flowers now. They're speaking my language. They're freaking gorgeous. Actually, they're right here. I'm going to show it to you. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So,
How dope are those? How dope are
Lego
those?
flowers. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
uh-huh. So it's just Lego if you wanna sponsor me, I'm your girl. But something like that, spending quality time with my daughter, there's no screens involved, we're working on Legos, she's telling me about her day, well, what her boyfriend's up to, whatever, she's 9. That allows me to be, like, 100% focused on kind of, like, non-work stuff, that's recharging me.
Mhm.
And then probably another one is kind of like, a date night with my husband or, a girls' night out at dinner where, we're just kind of letting loose and airing our grievances, airing what's good with the world, airing a new book or a new wine we had, and you're just completely yourself. There's like no expectations of you on anything. That also helps me recharge and recuperate. What about you though, Matt? I know you like journaling. That's one of your big ones. What else do you do to kind of recoup and recharge?
So, I'll answer that in a minute, but I wanna get back to yours. So that last one, 'cause I don't wanna lose this idea, 'cause,
Okay,
like,
what you got?
that time of the girls' night and spending time with friends, everything besides that you mentioned was very much like, it's a thing to focus on,
Yeah,
right?
that's
It's
true.
something else to
Yeah,
focus on. But that
yeah,
one, even your body language changed a little bit, and
uh,
it was like your shoulders dropped, and,
yeah.
like, it's an opening up. That one to me sounds like what I get out of, like, meditation and journaling,
Okay.
where it's open-ended, it's free, it's I
Mhm.
can say whatever the hell I want, and, like, if
Mhm.
there's shit going on in my mind, then it has a place to go.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what, like, journal and I
Okay.
don't journal that much, but, like,
Yeah,
that's kinda what that process does for me, and,
that's
like, time
fair.
with friends is the same way. Because what gives me the most energy, I think, is that, like, super open-ended time and
Okay.
space where I
Okay.
could be writing. So like I'll write little stories for my kids or
Oh,
like
that's cool.
poetry even like
Oh,
fucking yeah.
wow.
I don't know.
Like
Started playing
romantic
with that.
poetry for your wife?
No, it's super
Oh,
depressing and sad stuff
okay.
actually.
I mean, that's basically what I was thinking.
That's
Okay,
what
okay.
poems are supposed to be, right?
Oh, like kinda
Uh,
Edgar Allan Poe stuff?
no, but then there's the other side of it that is what you said, where it's something where I cannot focus on anything else.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
have to focus on that one thing.
Mhm.
Um, like golf is one for me where it's a little bit of
Ooh, tell
both.
me more, tell me
Yeah, so
more.
so golf is cool because if you're not 100% focused on the shot that you're taking at the time, you'll fuck it.
Uh,
But
oh, okay.
if in between there's lots of open space, there's lots of time, if you're thinking about the last shot, then it's gonna fuck up the next shot, and so
Interesting.
it's a
Okay.
little bit of both, and I like it because your shot gives you immediate feedback on your mental state. Because if you're like over focused on the wrong detail or thinking too
Mhm,
much when you're swinging, you'll screw up. Like if you're just in the right amount of space where you've planned everything, you've noticed
mhm,
the wind, the distance, the slope, the lie, the ball, the weather, like all of that stuff, you have all that
mhm.
planning and all that stuff that you have to focus on. When you get to the shot, you just have to hit the shot that you've
Nice.
planned out. It's all decided. So it's like
Okay.
flow. And then if you have to wait 15 minutes because the group in front of you is slow or something, then it's open ended and you're sitting outside enjoying nature.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Okay,
golf
well,
is
maybe I'm
it's
a
a big one
maybe
for
I'm gonna
me.
take up golf, Matt. Okay, you're gonna be sponsored by I can't think of a golf brand, Nike, and I'll get a logo sponsor. How's that?
Sure, that works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll let you go get those deals.
Mhm. I'm on it. I'm on it.
It's funny that you mentioned jazzercise because so I do
You
because
do
I've got my own
jazzercise?
I don't. But I have my own business, right? So
Mhm.
my hours are very flexible. And so I'll go do yoga classes like during the
Okay.
week.
Okay.
And sometimes the ones so I lift also, but I'll do like the yoga classes that are super, super slow and like
Okay.
stretchy. And the other people that really like those are senior citizens.
Okay. There you go.
And so it'll be me and people that are double my age only, and
Sure.
we're in there just
Yeah.
stretching our low backs,
Yeah.
and I
It's
love it.
important though, Matt. It's
Like,
important.
they
And I
get
and
it though.
and I love, like part of the reason I love that is I've made friendships with people, this was, like, getting off topic, that I would never out of the normal kind of mode of operations come in contact with these people. I'm, like, kinda hearing their life stories and how they got where they are, and that part is, like, almost, like, half the fun is, like, getting to know these, like, senior citizens. Like, I mean, they're in their, like, 70s and 80s, and it's just you never would have crossed paths with them for an extended amount of time to get to know them. So, like, that part is, like, cool. I'm talking to them, so I'm not thinking about what I have to turn in on Tuesday or, are my groceries up to date in my fridge and all that kind of stuff. It's good just to kinda, like, meet new people and talk new things, and I also get kind of a charge off of that too, just
Mm,
sitting around and, like, hearing people's stories and, what makes them tick, and that's always something good because then you're fully consumed, right? You're hearing the story and, "Oh, this is how this came to be," and
yeah.
all that kinda good stuff.
Yeah, if you really listen so I know George Carlin, old comedian, he had a really good quote, and he was talking about, like, in every individual person, you can see the entire universe. And it's really cool because, like, if you really pay attention and listen to somebody talk and hear their story and, like, step into their life, you just see everything. There could be somebody in a totally different situation than you, but you see the same, like, fears and ambitions and
Yeah.
desires and, like,
Yeah.
all that stuff. It's really cool. Who have you learned from? Like, who are some people you look up to, mentors, anything like
Mhm.
that?
I mean, this is like a spiel. Are you ready for this? I have very passionate feelings about mentorship and
Okay.
sponsor. I'll try not to go in full soapbox mode.
Let it rip.
Yeah. Well, I will say I attribute not all of my success, but a significant portion and a portion of it because of the kind of the sponsors and mentors I've had at my career at Marathon, and not just at Marathon, just mentorship in general. I've been lucky enough to have kind of, Marathon assigned sponsors, and that's kind of on a more formal basis. You can kind of say, like, "I need help with this project," and, can kinda get guidance from that, and I think, from, like, a surface level, that's, very great and tangible, but I'm never one to shy away from, like, "Hey, I really like what you've done with your career. Can we have coffee once a month?" And that kind of those organic to some degree, even though I'm kind of forcing it to happen, that has been really kind of eye opening because, like you said, you get to hear their story, you get to hear kind of how they came to be, you get to hear, some of the mistakes they made that maybe you can learn from and not have to repeat. You can also hear stuff that, hey, this has really helped me in my career, push that through to your career if that makes sense as well. And a point my girlfriend made the other day, she was on a panel speaking. I didn't realize I had them, but it was interesting, is you can have, like, mentors and, like, sponsorships outside of the career world. And I was
Mhm.
like, "Huh, like, do I have any of those?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I actually do." And it's some of my, like, jazzercise ladies, like, believe it or not, I'm
Mhm.
bringing it back to jazzercise. And those are, like, almost more as important, if not more than the career ones. I mean, they're the ones that, have had working families with, a mom and dad outside the home, and this is what worked for them, and this isn't what worked for them. And I've had, some trials and tribulations when I go start new jobs, and I have enough people that I can rely on and talk through and, hey, how should I approach this problem? What would you do? Am I thinking about this right? Having kind of these sounding boards on people that I respect in the sense of like what they've been able to achieve, but also they're like good people and they're good leaders, and they care about their families and they care about their teams. And so I know they're kind of coming from a good place. They've really kind of allowed me and kinda helped me push when I had 4 or 5 jobs in 4 or 5 years, and I was just kind of very anxious and overwhelmed. They were able to put it into perspective and help me focus on, what I'm bringing to the table and alleviate some of the fear and help maybe build some confidence that I wasn't able to kind of find for myself. So, I mean, I would say to anybody, find yourself a mentor, find yourself a sponsor. Don't wait for it to fall in your lap because it's not going to. And you would be surprised just how willing and open most people are to hook up once a month or once a quarter or whatever is appropriate and just kind of catch up. Because I love telling kind of my war stories. And I want, if I can tell somebody something and they can learn from it or not do it because it didn't work or do it because it worked, I love being able to kind of pass that on. So I would say, like, just be proactive and be vocal
Mhm.
about it. Cause I think that's what's helped me kind of connecting and networking with people versus someone was like, well, I'm just kinda waiting for it to come to fruition. I'm like, "That's not how it works." You, like, gotta go out and find it, and that
Yeah.
has been such a kind of important kind of, like, sidebar where I can bounce ideas off of and concerns and fears and, "Hey, I'm gonna give this presentation. Is this coming with the right voice?" Or, "Hey, like, they offered me this job, and I don't know if I should take it," and, they can kinda give me the pros and cons, and they never, give the absolute answer, and you don't want them to, but they give
Yeah.
you like, "Okay, here's what you need to think about, and here's what matters." And I find that if you can align yourself with people that have similar values, then the advice is always gonna be awesome because you know kind of where their heart and mind are coming from. So those are kind of my 2 cents. I've had mentors in the form of, like, former bosses. I've had mentors in terms of, like, just colleagues, like, we're on the same level, living the same journey, like, let's help each other. I've had, jazzercise mentors. They've been like all walks of life. I've had some like fancy executive sponsors that bring kind of a different picture to it. I can, hopefully maybe see my future in them and they can say, if it's truly what you want, you need to work on this and work on that. And I think kind of having like a wide spectrum of support is
Mhm.
only gonna kind of help you.
Okay, I've got a bunch of directions we could go.
Okay. What you got?
Do you have any anti role models or anti mentors?
Yeah. I have a current mentor that loves to give me homework. And one of his homework assignments was reflect on your like last 10 bosses and find qualities that you enjoyed and note qualities that you didn't enjoy. So I think, I mean, that's not like exactly what you were asking, but I think going through that process allows me to make sure like I'm displaying those qualities as a leader and as a human. And then also I try not to display some of those qualities. And that also kind of helps as you're looking for mentors and sponsors. Like, okay, well, the way this guy leads is not really kind of my MO. So like maybe we don't want to, continue an extended relationship. But that kind of exercise where you list and dissect qualities has been super powerful to help me kind of grow as a leader on what to continue to do, what to do, and then just kind of what to avoid. Because I mean, I would say that's kind of like a journaling exercise, right? You're reflecting
Yeah.
and saying, what was it that I didn't like? Oh, okay. Well, it was his approach to this. Or, oh, I just really loved it when, she remembered my kid's name and checked on me when I had a cold. I mean, just like, little things like that. Obviously, like, there's bigger, flashier ones. But that exercise was super interesting to kind of uncouple what's going on in here and then help me kind of point forward on my journey. Just as a career person or just a human in general, right? Because it's all applicable.
Yeah. I think there's 2 parts of that are super interesting. One is that no one person will be a perfect role model for you or perfect mentor, and so if you find somebody that has some traits that you admire, they can be a role model for how they approach business or fitness
Exactly.
or whatever.
Exactly.
And then the other one is so I had strong mentors and good role models for a while, and
Okay.
then I kind of outgrew them. And
Okay.
during that time, I felt a little bit lost almost, and like I don't have somebody that I can really look up to like
Yeah.
emulate. But
Yeah.
then I realized that I had several people that I was working closely with that I wanted to be the fucking opposite of.
There you go. There you go.
And that
That'll
was
do it.
super useful, realizing that
Yeah.
and saying,
Yeah.
okay, those are people that they've gotten maybe to where I would want to be in life, but they've done it in a way that I do not want to do.
Yeah. And that's just as
And
important, right?
it's huge. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. You
it's
got to
kind of
realize what
similar
you
to
don't want. Yeah.
yeah, your guardrails, your baselines. The other one that I thought was interesting that you mentioned was asking for mentors and just asking for advice
Yeah.
because that's such an underutilized thing, I feel
Hmm.
like. And
Hmm.
and so I'm doing a project with big company and it's around like career development and stuff like that. And one of the first things that we did on that project was let's talk to everybody and just make it clear to them that if they want something, they have permission to go ask about it. It was a 30-minute meeting, showed some stuff, and after that meeting, several different people raised their hand and said, "Hey, I'm kind of interested in this career track over here."
Cool.
And so they got connected with somebody that could kind of tell them about it and mentor them and stuff like that. And
That's awesome.
I don't know, it's such a small thing, but as a company, if you just give people like a little nudge and permission to say, "Hey, if you're interested in something different than what you're doing now, you can ask and that's okay."
I put it back on the person.
Oh yeah.
I've never waited for someone to say it's okay to ask. What's the harm in asking, right? I've gotten to try some new stuff because I've asked for it, and no one was like, "Oh, you can ask." I was like, "Well, I'm going to ask because like, what's the worst thing they can do? Is it's just going to say no." I would almost 1,000 times rather ask and find out like that's not an option than for someone to like wait to tell me that. I mean, and I get it. Like, you want to obviously have the culture that that's an understanding, but I'm just a very proactive, like, I wanna get it done, like, let's talk about it, that I'm just gonna ask, and you may be like, "No, that's
Yeah.
not gonna happen," and then I just go on to the next thing.
Yeah, and I've always been the same way. I think most jobs that I got when I was working for other companies were because I asked for them,
It's
right?
100%. Yeah, but I
And
get though, like, when you're new or younger in your career, you're probably, like, intimidated to voice those questions and concerns, but the sooner I think people can get comfortable asking and knowing that there's no harm in asking. You're not saying you hate what you're doing right now, you're just saying that down the line, this may also look good. To me, that's just never gonna hurt you, but I get the intimidation and it doesn't happen naturally, but once you kinda rip the Band-Aid off, I mean, the world's your oyster. All they can do is say, "No, not right now," or "No, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard of," and, you move on to the next thing.
yeah, anybody that might be listening that's a leader, help share this same advice with your people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And say that, yes, you
100%.
should be asking for stuff. And
Yeah.
because some people just personality types, right? They need
I
that
know.
that
I know. They
nudge.
need that extra push. Yeah.
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 I thought it was cool, like, you were talking about your mentors in in Jazzercise, and I've heard people talk about this idea of having, like, a support team around
Mhm.
you, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say, like, giving yourself, like, main character syndrome or anything like
Mm.
that, but, like, if
Too
you think
late.
about,
Too late.
like, the people if you're thinking about your individual performance and trying
Mhm.
to be better, whatever that means to you, you can look at some of the athletes around the world or even celebrities and all that stuff, like, what do? They've got a business manager, they've got a
Mhm.
finance person, they've got
Mhm.
a fitness coach, they've got a nutrition person, they've got a coach for whatever their thing is,
Mhm.
all of that stuff, and I found that kinda useful because I think we all have different areas of our life that we're trying to balance and wanna improve and stuff, and, like, I met a guy at the gym and he's a bodybuilder. So he's in the shows all oiled up and greasy and all that
Yeah.
stuff and like
Cool.
posing
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And like we don't talk a ton, but
Mhm.
like I go to him when I need some accountability or some motivation or
Love
like
it.
little stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I think that idea of kind of building a team around you for the things that you care about is
Mhm.
super useful.
Yeah, I mean, because it's just like you're not gonna go try to do your own cavity refill, right? Like, you're not gonna be able to do everything. I think that's okay, and I think asking for help is only gonna lead to good things, and maybe you don't get all the help you need, but if it gets you halfway there, then you're halfway closer to what you needed to get done.
And I think it circles all the way back to what you said about finding your team's strengths and putting it together and working together is how we get things done.
Yeah, and I think that's applicable, like, even in marriage, right? Like,
Mm,
my husband, I know what he's good at, he knows what I'm good at, and I think we function well because of that. Like, we identify, okay, he's really good at this, I'm good at this, but if I need to step in and do it, I mean, it's, not gonna be as good as if he did it kind of thing, and so I think a lot of these how to be successful doesn't just need to be in personal or life because it's all the same thing. We're all working towards goals. The goals are
yeah.
different. I think knowing that some of that can be translated to, like, multiple branches of your life, you're like, "Oh, okay, this doesn't just have to be a work thing. Like, this helped me in work. Let me see if this can, like, translate into my personal life as well, and vice versa," right?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think this has been super fun. I
I
love
know, it's
this
been really
conversation.
fun. Yes.
Is there anything you'd want to leave listeners with, one last piece of advice or thoughts or anything?
I've already said it, but just ask the question. Ask for help, ask for a mentor, ask the tough questions, ask to get off early to go take your kid to gymnastics. I think just ask the questions. There's no harm in asking. And once you kind of get used to that mentality, it's only going to get better from there. And I know it's intimidating at first, especially if you're young in your career, but the more comfortable you can get with asking, like, why does this work this way? Or, hey, I want this job. Can I have it? Or, hey, I'm going to leave early because my dog's sick. Asking questions, it helps. That's my motto.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
this has been great. Jamie, thank you for
Yeah.
coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Um, if people want to like connect with you
Yeah.
or reach out or anything, if you're open to that, like
I'm
what's the
totally
best way?
totally open. I think you have my email address. It's jamieellen.villarreal@gmail.com. That's quite a mouthful, but they know how to get to you. So just, yeah, feel free to hand out my info as needed.
Okay. Perfect. And LinkedIn too, I'm
Link,
assuming
yeah,
is
I'm on
decent.
LinkedIn. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Check me out on LinkedIn too. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has
Yeah.
been
Well,
another
thanks.
episode of the Achieve and Enjoy podcast. Thank you, Jamie, for coming on. That was super fun. Anybody that's listening, if you want to watch the video of this, it is on the Pod2 YouTube. Follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and pod2.co/podcast to find transcription, show notes, all of that stuff. And I hope you enjoy your work this week.